What is up, guys? It's Young Breezy bringing you guys a brand new episode to the Impact Series. For anybody who does not know what the Impact Series is, it's where I feature a Yugituber here on my channel, and they talk about how they came into the game and how the game's impacted their life in any way. And as you guys see here, I have no other than Intch95 himself. How you doing?
Hey, what's up there, man?
Nothing much. So for the first question, how did you get into the game?
I got into Yu-Gi-Oh in a really weird time because this is when Yu-Gi-Oh was first introduced in America. So I was probably in like the second or third grade, and I lived in, for those of you guys that don't know California that well, it's not just Los Angeles. I lived in San Francisco, and there's an area there that's like a predominantly Asian area, and I went to a Catholic school, a private Catholic school, right? And essentially, there were kids that were playing this out on the yard, like during recess and after school. And I had never seen the show or anything up until that time. And I remember I wanted to see what they were doing, and I walk up to them, and they were like on the side of this little concrete table thing, and they were playing cards, and they kind of showed me some of the cards. They kind of explained some of the basics to me, and then I wasn't like hooked immediately, but I was interested and I kind of understood it. And then I think maybe coincidentally a few days later, I was watching TV and I was flipping through the channels on weekdays, or on the weekend. And I remember, for those of you guys that are old enough to remember like Kids WB back in the day, they used to air the original Yu-Gi-Oh series on there. And it was so shocking that I had run across it because they told me what the game was called, and then I see a show, playing people playing the card game. So I kind of saw it, and then I was like, oh my gosh. And then I watched the episode and I was like, this is actually really cool. Like, this seems really, really fun. And I think the first episode I saw wasn't like the very first Yu-Gi-Oh episode. It might have been, but I think it was like one of the first episodes that they had aired. And it just got me hooked from there. And then after that, I went back to school, and the kids, they kind of like let me use some of their cards, but I obviously didn't have any of my own. And then I found out later on that one of the kids, one of my classmates, his family, I guess, owned a card shop, or his brother worked at a card shop in San Francisco, and he had a bunch of cards and whatnot. And I remember he tried to sell me these one cards, and it was from the like one of the first two sets. I think either LOB or Metal Raiders had just came out at the time. So Metal Raiders was just about to be released, and he had, I think it was like a Garnecia Elephantis or just a bunch of random cards that he like put together in a stack, and he tried to sell them to me. And I'm like, what 7 or 8 year old kid has money? Like, you don't work, you don't really do anything. Kids don't really have money.
Yeah.
And and I remember I went to my parents at the time, and I was like, hey, can I have like $20? And they're like, what the heck? Like, what kid asks for $20? So I'm a little kid, and like, I'm so disconnected from reality. They're like, why do you need this money? So instead of saying something realistic, like it's for school or something, I think I said it was like for a water bottle or something. And they're like, what kind of water bottle are you buying? Like, is it made out of gold or something? And obviously water is like $1, if anything, not 20. And they kind of clowned me for a little while. And then I think my grandmother was visiting me at the time because I was young. She was visiting my family at the time from Europe. And I think she ended up, I initially asked her, and then she told my parents, and then long story short, I ended up having to explain like what it was for. And I think like one day she had like picked me up from school, and we were walking back, and I ended up telling her it was for like some cards or whatever. So she took me to like one of these like little local shops or whatever that I knew in the area, and she got me one of the newest packs. And like I said, LOB had just come out a few months before that, so basically the first set in Yu-Gi-Oh. And that week, Metal Raiders had just came out. So I went and I got a pack of Metal Raiders, and I was hooked. And I still have those like original 9 cards to this day, and I still cherish them because they're the first 9 cards I ever got. And
Yeah.
then from there, kind of just snowballed. I think maybe a little bit after that, I ended up getting. I think I got the the Kaiba starter deck first, and then I got the Yugi starter deck, and then every starter deck I ended up getting after that. So it kind of just started snowballing. I played a little bit in school for fun at the time, and then eventually, I just kept growing into what it is today.
Yeah, it's always cool to see like the first like go back like as you are now like as a player and look back at like the first card that you've actually like pulled and you're like, "Oh, I remember that exact day." it's kind of cool to look back and see on that.
Yeah, it's those 9 cards. I really value them a lot because the way I look at it, it's like if I never got that very first pack of Metal Raiders, I probably wouldn't be like who I am today, and I probably wouldn't think the way I do today, and I probably wouldn't be ever. I probably wouldn't have ever played Yu-Gi-Oh for all I know. Like it's possible, but it's very unlikely.
Yeah. So the second question: how has the game impacted your life?
Oh my, the game's impacted my life in more ways than one. So, do you mean like generally, or do you mean like
Um,
positively or negatively?
it could be in general.
Um, well, in generally, I think it's taught me a lot of things and it's exposed me to a lot of things. So, like first and foremost, like if you look at it just like at a surface value, it's been a hobby that I've engaged in since 2002. So, it's something that's been a really big part of my life. Much later on, it's allowed me to travel a lot of states across the country, see a lot of places I otherwise wouldn't have seen. It's taught me on the side of just like on business, in terms of how I look at the world through like a business lens. It's taught me just how to monetize things, how to, and not necessarily through YouTube, but just how to make something out of nothing. I mean, I started my channel when there was effectively no other really big YouTubers on YouTube. I mean, I started doing YouTube in 2007, and there was very few people that actually did Yu-Gi-Oh stuff on YouTube. So it kind of taught me how to grow stuff, how to grow a brand, how to establish yourself, how to make money from stuff. In terms of like buying, trading, and selling, it taught me how to think with numbers. It really, I don't know. There's a lot of things from like a monetary standpoint and from like a business perspective, but then it's also really just taught me how to network with people. I think that's like one of the most important things: how to reach out to people, how to connect with people. Um, but I think the biggest thing, like above all else, other than just like shaping like who I am as like a person and how I think about things, is I'm really fortunate that I was able to have YouTube be something that came through Yu-Gi-Oh for me because growing up, I always wanted to get into the entertainment industry.
Hmm.
And now the way I look at it is like YouTube is really, I wouldn't say like a stepping stone because that kind of like puts YouTube down as like a platform,
Hmm.
but it's really given me an outlet to where I can do something that is a hobby of mine and turn it into a passion for content creation because it allows me to entertain people. That's basically what YouTube is at the end of the day. So that's probably like the biggest impact it's had on my life. It's really given me a positive outlet, and it's giving me something that I feel like is mine. When you're growing up, I mean, I started doing YouTube when I was probably like in junior high school, and I'm 22, about to be 22 right now. So it's given me something that like I've been able to do and work on independently without really many other people's help for the majority of everything. So it's allowed me to kind of sit back and kind of grow and nurture something. If you kind of think about it, like I can't really compare YouTube to a baby, like a physical human being, but
Yeah.
that's really what it is to me. And it's just given me a lot of opportunities I probably otherwise wouldn't have had, and given me a lot of skills that I probably would have struggled to learn had I not been doing both Yu-Gi-Oh and YouTube collectively.
Well, yeah, because it's like with the whole like with YouTube. I mean, you can kind of count that as kind of like your baby in a way because it's like, I mean, it started at nothing and then it's like you could you see the growing process of it and everything like from the start to the finish and everything. And
Well, I mean, like, I feel like it's never really like a finished process. Like, it's still
well,
ongoing. Like, I have one of the slowest growing like Yu-Gi-Oh channels that has at least like a decent amount of subscribers and views, but
yeah.
that's just because, and I still to this day probably haven't figured out the formula, the best way to grow and stuff. But
Yeah.
certainly, I'm one of the most like long time standing YouTubers just because I enjoy the grind. I enjoy the process. So, I mean, even if I don't blow up today or tomorrow or a year from now, it's something that I really enjoy doing, and that's why I've always wanted to even branch out and do other things because YouTube kind of led to me doing YouTube, but then it's also just it's a whole nother spectrum beyond that. It's not I don't do YouTube because I do Yu-Gi-Oh. I do YouTube because I enjoy content creation. So that's why ideally one day I want to maybe develop like a vlog channel or a secondary
Yeah.
channel if I can't really do what I want to do with this one.
Yeah, it's understandable. One thing I've always in every um, each episode, I always say that it's kind of shocking to most people that like a card game as like as we grew up as like most people don't understand it. Obviously, we have to explain it at the end of the day. but they don't understand how this game can either change someone's life like around. And I guess how it really this series started is, at least from what I heard, Slim had a totally different life before Yu-Gi-Oh, and I was like, it's crazy how Yu-Gi-Oh changed him, and I'm like, wait, this is a pretty good series to try and hear everybody else's story, because I know most people who do watch YouTube in general do like to hear their stories and just stories in general. So I figured, hey, why not take the chance, and I guess that's where we are here today. But
Like for me, like YouTuber, actually more specifically Yu-Gi-Oh. Throughout most of my life, because initially throughout like grade school, I started to move around quite a bit, and
mhm.
I don't have any siblings or really any other family in the U.S. because I'm obviously not originally from here. So it's given me an opportunity to kind of have something at all times, regardless of where I am, and build friends and relationships that really transcend state barriers. It transcends countries. It transcends the world in a lot of ways. Like I have friends right now that are in Europe. I have friends right now that are in Africa. I have friends right now that are in Asia, and it's I can always reach out to a lot of these people, and it's really been a blessing for a larger part of the things. Because like growing up, I would move schools. Like at first when I went to that Catholic private school, I'm not like Catholic or anything, but
Yeah.
I went to this private school, and then after that, I think I hit like the fourth grade. I started moving schools every year because initially I moved from San Francisco to the East Bay, which is like the opposite side of the Bay Area. And I moved there, and then I went from like a private school that was like really nice and conservative to one of the like worst possible like ghetto schools you could ever go to. So like
Yeah.
as a kid, that was really difficult. And then the year after that, I went to another private school, and it's arguably still in like the top like private schools in the state. And then the year after that, I went to another public school for junior high because I moved all the way from San Francisco, the Bay Area, all the way 120 something odd miles north of that to Sacramento. And like my life was like really uprooted multiple times. So what stayed consistent throughout that entire time, because obviously I moved to junior high and then I went to that same school for another year, and then I moved again for high school. So it was really strange that the one thing that really remained consistent across all that was my love for playing Yu-Gi-Oh. And
Yeah.
that was the one thing, regardless of what friends or people I had around me or what my environment was, I was able to do something that I really loved and enjoyed. And obviously up until that point, YouTube wasn't even a thing. Like YouTube wasn't even created until 2006. So up until that point, it was just like I love Yu-Gi-Oh. I love to play. I love to trade. I love to do all that. So, but I definitely wasn't exposed to like locals or any of that stuff for a long, long time. Like I think the first local I probably went to was maybe in like 2004. I want to say around 2004 because I had a neighbor at the time when I went to that first ghetto, really really bad ghetto school in like the Oakland area. I had a neighbor who lived next door to us, and she worked at the second private school that I was supposed to go to, and they because the schools were right next to each other, which was really strange. Like it's kind of uncommon. It's kind of an awkward situation because I had to be on a waiting list to try and get into that school, and she would basically carpool with me every day for those 2 years that I went to that ghetto school and the private school. And I ended up finding out that kids go to like these local shops, and she was the first one to take me there. So I'm really grateful because that kind of like opened up my lens and took those blinders off because you don't really a lot of people even to this day, yeah, it's a lot easier to find out about like locals and tournaments and all this other stuff, but a lot of people that kind of just know the cards or just know the show, they might not know that local shops exist or there's like a level
Mhm.
of competition out there. Like people are often like really ignorant, and it's not necessarily a bad thing or out of any fault of their own. It's just sometimes that's just the circumstance.
Yeah, that is true. Like I didn't really start going to locals till I remember. I think it was when Dino Rabbit was meta and everything, and my friend exposed me to the game. And I was I was curious, but I wasn't full force with it. And then like he's like, bro, I want you to come to the shop with me, whatever. And he gave me one of his decks, and then like at the first duel I had, I was like, I'm hooked. Like
It's
it's
fun. It's a
crazy.
really addictive game right off the bat, but it was kind of hard for me because a lot of people don't know this, but like my family knew that like as a kid when I was probably like 7, 8, or 9, They got me, like a starter deck or whatever, and some cards for packs every now and again. But they didn't know that like it turned into what it is today. And for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't know that I played. Like they didn't know that I would go to local shops with my neighbor and she would take me there. They didn't know that once I became older and I started grinding and hustling and trading and doing all this stuff and making connections and building relationships at such an early age, I was able to go to a lot of different cities and places that most, 10, 11, 12-year olds
Wouldn't be
could
able
only dream of.
to.
Like it's just
Yeah.
not something that happens, especially in a big place like California, it doesn't happen. And they didn't know I did that for a long, long time. And they still don't really know exactly what I do. They know now that I do some stuff that's like online and YouTube, but my parents for a long time didn't know that I really played Yu-Gi-Oh, and it was kind of like my own like little, almost like a secret, like something that you just have to yourself, and you're having a good time as a kid, and you're enjoying yourself. It's like that precious secret you just don't want to let
Mm-hmm.
go because it's so awesome and it's such a fun outlet. It's like having your own like little club, for myself.
Yeah, and it's all like I think it's all also like a good thing to, I guess, kind of escape from reality for most people, because
Well, for me, like I wouldn't say it was an escape because for me, like growing up, I was always competitive and regardless of what I did, because I always played sports as a kid, and academically, I was always really competitive. So Yu-Gi-Oh just gave me like a secondary outlet to compete. Like I always, like as a kid, I always loved playing like board games. I loved playing, random card games. I'll play like War. I'll play some random like European card games with actual, like an actual deck of cards as a kid. But it just gave me another outlet to compete. And like once I found out there was a different level of competition, and there was tournaments and all this other stuff, and then once I got into YouTube, that was a whole nother realm of competition, because that's like at the marketing forefront. That's from like a networking perspective. That's from advertising, from branding, from all this other stuff that goes into YouTube. That's like a whole nother means of competition, because you're competing for entertainment views, for connections. You're competing for a lot of different things, and that's what Yu-Gi-Oh really led to. It gave me a really good outlet to compete in a lot of different elements of my life,
well,
and it's taught me a lot of trial and error, which
yeah,
there's been a lot of, for sure.
we usually have that, especially for tubing. We all have that. But I guess we can end with that. I hope you guys did enjoy this episode of the Impact series. If you guys did, leave a like on the video, as well as let me know in the comment section down below who you guys want me to have for the next episode or even for future episodes. I will also link Intch95's channel down in the description, so you guys can go check that out as well. Do you have any last words?
No, not really. Just anyone that plays Yu-Gi-Oh, I think whether they're doing YouTube or playing just for fun or competing or even both in some cases, I think one of the most important things that people really overlook is you should try and determine what you want to get out of this game, or really like out of the grind of tubing or whatever else you're doing out there. Because a lot of the times people get really disconnected from reality, in the sense that they don't like they don't have like a clear path. Like for instance, if you're trying to figure out if you're a player, or if you're if whether you're a competitive or casual player or a collector or any of this other stuff, have like a clear path in mind, and like try and get the most out of it, in the sense that use this game as a positive outlet. A lot of people, they get negatively impacted by this game, and I certainly have had a lot of like negative impacts from this game as well in my own life. So I think try and just look at the positive things. Don't be negative in the community. I know, like for a long time, I never really looked at it that way, and I think that's something that people should really strive to do, because the more negativity you pour into our community, the more it spreads for a lot of other people, and that's not really good for the game. It doesn't help the community grow, and really you should just be looking at positivity. Try and help people. Don't be mean. Like just overall try and be a positive individual, because that's one of the things that I learned very, very late through playing this game and doing YouTube, and that's something I really want to promote, and I really cherish for my own upbringing, and just from my own experiences.
Well, with that being said, again, if you guys did enjoy the episode, leave a like. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. As always, it's Young Breezy. I'm out. Deuces.